would be considered measure applying the warrants for intense parental alienation situations where parents systematically breach family life decisions. The second one is, I am being faced with situations of institutionalization of children when parents refuse to accomplish. Would that be an abusive measure?
Well, the first question, definitely. Sometimes, in the cases that you present, it is necessary to issue a warrant in order to assure that the children will see and will be with the other parent in the moment that is defined in the parental plan that I speak in presentation. About the second question, the institutionalization of the child in these cases, I would say that the parents deserve it, but the child doesn't. So if we put a child in an institution because the parents are involved in a high conflict and because there is a situation of parental alienation, I think that we will, what the child will read in this decision, and that is that she is guilty for the situation and we are punishing her for this situation. So I think that we can find additional answers, for example, among relatives of the child. I remember one case when a grandmother was in the end the one who was in position to give the possibility to the grandchildren to live with her, and in this situation to have fully contact with both parents. But the institutionalization, I don't think it's a good solution.
Sorry, I've been passed the mic, and I'm sorry that if I've jumped in. Is that okay? Just a quick question, Ricardo. Just thank you for your talk. Alex Masado from the UK. I thought it was very interesting that you chose as your title, you talked about shared parenting, high conflict, and parental alienation. And I thought that was very helpful because often I think high conflict, there is some sort of conceptual lumping that comes together that really needs to be teased apart. And I think what you were doing by separating those two out in the title, I think, is saying that actually there are maybe different thresholds, you know, what separates low conflict from high conflict, and actually parental alienation is potentially not conflict, it's something slightly different. So I thought that was rather helpful, if that was indeed your intention. That was an observation. But the second thing is, as an educator and a legal educator, I'm very interested in whether you could, would, or should, within the legal training, have students understand maybe that shared parenting in and of itself is not, is quite a fuzzy concept, and it varies according to the lens through which you're viewing it. So if it's a judicial decision, it's one thing. If it's a policy mechanism, it could very well be a different thing. I mean, in the UK, I'm thinking about a shared residence order. You know, you can have one parent living in Scotland and one in England and still have shared residence. Equally, but shared parenting or shared residence is dependent on a policy mechanism, child benefit as a passport to any sort of recognition. It also it is dependent on, it could be an aspiration, a family practice, a political ideology. So there are all different ways in which you could potentially view shared residence. And I wonder whether, as a legal scholar, an academic, an educator, whether those are the kind of things that it might be interesting to put to your students if there is time and if there is a willingness to do that in order to help inform maybe the judicial context in which they work. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's what I try to do, in fact. to give to the future judges and public prosecutors, for one part, the legal basis that allowed me to say that this is a preferential regime in our own legal system. And we have a national law that points it, and we have the international law, specifically the Convention on the Rights of the Child, that support us in this conclusion. But also they have to be aware that each case is a case, and each child is a child. And if I say that this is a preferable regime, I can say that I can apply it in every single case. So they have to be aware of the differences and of the need to give content, a concrete content, to the best interest of the child in each case, in each singular case. And of course, being aware also of the scientific studies of everything that is developed by social scientists, experts, researchers in this field, and then can help us to not only legal based our decisions, but also in a scientific context, I would say. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for your comments. My name is Edward Bartlett from the USA. At the beginning of your presentation, you talked about domestic violence, and you actually cited the European Parliament statement. It's very important to emphasize that all the research shows that women are as likely to be the initiators and the perpetrators of domestic violence as men. So obviously that parliamentary statement was very biased. So my suggestion would be to highlight the fact that that statement the resolution is biased. Domestic violence is an equal opportunity problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for is exactly what I usually say when with my students we analyze this resolution. And thank you for the question, because it reminds me another one regarding the parental alienation. Usually we put always the man as the alienated and the woman as the alienator. And the experience tells me that this isn't not quite that. It's not a gender issue. This is the question of a child, and to look for its best interest. So regarding the situations of domestic violence, of course, whatever the perpetrator is, the man or the woman, the solution will be the same. But here, with the concern that I have, and I have specifically in my country, and with the context in which we are nowadays, that we see that we have a growing number of claims of domestic violence that in the end we realize that they are false. And this is something that we have to be aware. Of course, the first intervention will be a protective one, and we have to protect the children of the alleged perpetrator, but taking in consideration also the possibility of that claim is not true and is false, and in that aspect, to prevent the definitively broke of the ties between the child and this target parent.
Thank you, Judge, for your presentation. Ethnicality parenting model for happier children.
One very short. Thank you for such judges like you. Maybe it is possible to clone you. Welcome in Poland.
Thank you. Please, thank you.
I was second to put my hand up. I handed up last. It's okay, no worries. And we understand. Everybody's hyped up today. So my concerns are from your presentation, Judge, is the timing, which timing, children don't have time. You don't have time because cases, in my country, there's a lot of cases that judges have to deal with. So time is a factor. The third person that you're getting as evaluator is by themselves. There's a lot of problems with counterintuitive, as the late Stephen Miller used to say, and some people get it wrong. And is they're biased, just like the gentleman just said now, with the one person. So isn't it better having more evaluators more, like 2 or 3 or, aboard prior to coming to the judge. And with domestic violence as well, who is doing this, just like someone said here, a lot of false, and yourself said 70 to 80% are false allegations. So it's the bedrock of parent alienation. So who's going to do that? Is it going to take years and years? In my country, it's like years and years before the case ends up dealing with. So, they get removed, the parent gets removed, the targeted parent gets removed, and it's a lot of damage to the children, time. And I have a saying, every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year that goes by without the justification of that parent being present is doing a lot of harm and damage, where we have to go support, prevention, support, and therapy from way, way before. Children and families do not belong in court. Absolutely not. I believe that we should go to education at the beginning, education at the beginning of before having a family, while having a family, and while separation, just like you suggested as well, to introduce enforceable and court orders. Are they enforced? That's another issue we have. An alienator doesn't obey these orders. So thank you very much, Judge, for
Thank you.
coming.
I fully agree with you. And I realize that the court intervenes because everything failed before. So what we are trying to do is to offer, nevertheless, something that can help. And the question of the time is quite important. I always focus that aspect with my trainees, usually by saying that when we think half a year is not that much. But if we think that we are dealing with a child of 1 year old, it is half of her existence. So we have to have this in mind. And the time, of course, is our great enemy. I have to say that now we are facing the problem of domestic violence and the false claims of domestic violence, but before we have of sexual abuse. And I have to deal with cases of child that were apart from the alleged abuser, that in the end we realized that it was not, for 5-6 years. In some cases, it was possible to give something, to reach something, but I have to say that most part of these cases, they are lost. They are lost, and yeah, it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult. That's why I say that here in this kind of situations, the criminal answer has to be quite close to the family court. So we have to, something like a joint management of the situation in the criminal aspect and in the family aspect. So, if possible, during the investigation, while we try to clarify the situation, of course, with an evaluation of the situation and an evaluation of the child in concrete, we try to implement in our case some kind of context between the child and the target parent. So with the presence of the advisors, with the presence of a third part, a relative that offers us the confidence, but it can be possible. But thank you. And of course, I agree with you.
I have a very short question. In my country, in Switzerland, it seems that the usual presumption is that alienation could be a consequence of high conflict. But I think that high conflict can be a consequence of a beginning alienation. How do you difference between the two cases?
It's quite interesting, the question. Well, perhaps by showing you two cases that I dealt with. And the first one is a high conflict case, and it was something like this. The relationship of the couple started to fall during the pregnancy of the mother. And since the first minute of the child, they were always fighting. The parent imposes all the time his presence there because he was thinking that If the case goes to the court would say that the child needs to be with the reference, the figure that in the case would be the mother. And he wants to show to the court, no, in this case, the mother is not the reference the figure of reference because I was there since the first minute. Of course, that this allows an explosion of conflict. And in the end, it was possible to say, so the child will live to each one of you in periods of 1 week. And I have to say that Coimbra is a very small city. And why can I tell you that this in the end was well succeeded? Well, because to beginning, I didn't have any other case related to that child in my court. So this tells me that apparently everything goes well. But by another hand, being in a small city, I was in the street lots of times that I encountered the child with the father, other times with the mother, and for what I saw, they were perfectly. At the high conflict can be a way, in fact, to open the way to the situation of parental alienation, of course. And I would say that this parental alienation would be a specific stage of a conflict in which it is not the different points of view, it is not the idea of each one of the parents and the power that they want to have over the child, but it's more than that. It's one of the parents that simply don't want to have another one in their own child.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to hear a judge that actually understands parental alienation, because as we all know, there's such a lack of awareness at all levels, and like targeted parents are facing with judges that don't understand it. So really very grateful for that. I do wanted to kind of ask the question that sort of hinted by Dr. Bartlett earlier, as well as Anthony here, about false allegation, because when you come to a situation of severe parental alienation, you get situation where parents get falsely accused, one after another. Either they would go to court and then they would get their name clear, and then they will go back again and again. So I'm curious, how do you look at a case and figure out whether the allegation is false or truth?
Well, the evaluation of the child usually provides us some support. Right? For example, I have one case, for example, of a child that rejects completely the presence of the parent, the father. We have no complaints of domestic violence. And I found that was rather strange, and asked for an evaluation. And to the evaluator, the child confessed that during the parents' marriage, he saw constantly the father beating the mother, and he was afraid, was panicking all the time that he has to be with the father. This was not an unknown situation, and the evaluation told me that it happened. Sometimes the evaluation tells me, for example, that someone that is present by the other parent has an aggressive parent, and we find in the evaluation that there is a strong link, effective link between the child and that parent. My experience tells me that this can be a sign that we are facing a case of a false allegation. Of course, we have to combine all the elements that we have in the case. We have to combine the elements collected in the criminal investigation to have then a clear idea if it is false or if it is not false. Please. After that,
they're false. Nothing happens. Nothing happens.
It can't happen.
They get away with it, and they keep the child. Like 6 years went by, 2 years, 1 year, whatever. It's false allegations, committed perjury under oath, lying and manipulation, and nothing happens.
What?
Like it's getting rewarded and asking the targeted parent to
What
pay
I think-
maintenance
what
for
I-
this abuse to continue.
What I
Sorry.
think that I understand you. What I think that should happen, the parent who made the false claim has to answer in the criminal court. In Portugal, he can. He can. In Portugal, he can. And in the family, we have to plan to take the child from his support. Is the answer that we can provide.
I think as Mr. Papadopoulos is not here, I have to make an end now. It was very